Um, the next one, be honest about your feelings with your significant other, or keep the peace by staying quiet. Be honest with your feelings with your significant other, or keep the peace by being quiet. Three, two, one.
You're not my mother's son, but you're my mother's son. Cause though your mother has sons, she got other sons. All your brothers call me brother, I'm the other one. And you showed up to be a brother, but I wanted one.
What we all needed is more than just a podcast.
It's a community of strong individuals connected on the basis of friendship,
transparency, accountability, healing, and growth. Come join the conversation and share in the space that makes us all better.
Our hope is that you find something that you need.
Real friends. Real friends. Where would I be without my Hey son, who gon' ride for me like my day one?
Yo, so I'm half mad, half amazing. Sean Nichols Sr., a true teller, but never beyond approach or reproach. I am a proud husband, a father of four, and a minister.
Oh, we added the extra on it. Okay.
Oh, it's your turn.
Yo, what it is, man? It's your boy at the Noble One, man, the kingdom builder, the culture cultivator. You already know what time it is. Happy to be here, especially happy to be here. Have my friend in here. We about to break it down, talk, B-I-B-E. What it do? Let's go, Yush.
Yeah. What it do? Y'all know what it is. It's Yusha Assad, intuitive leader, life and leadership coach, motivational speaker, and recording artist. Just sent to elevate the financial and mental condition of our community so that we can live a purpose-filled life where we work and win with great care. Y'all know what it's about. Kurt, what it do?
What up, gentlemen? Thank you for having me. My name is Curtis Walls from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am an alpha man, just like every one of you, and I'm honored to be here. 20 years later? Blessings. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a lifestyle curator, but most importantly, I am a father of two beautiful children. I'm a single father of two beautiful children, full time. And it is my joy. And I love just being here since y'all was throwing out some of y'all line names. He is, man, a.k.a. Heisman.
Ooh, we ain't do that, though.
Fellas, what's going on? Good morning to everybody. It is Brandon, the therapist here. I'm really glad to be tapping in with everybody. Mental health space, keeper, walker, professional healer. I'm really excited to be here and to be a part of this conversation with my brothers. I'm excited that Black men are gathering together and having this conversation. I'm currently a licensed clinical mental health counselor in North Carolina, as well as South Carolina, with over 15 years of mental health experience, 7 of which has been in this direct care space as a professional provider and a licensed therapist in this state. So I'm excited, man. Let's get into it. Let's do it.
And I want to say personally, man, thank you for what it is that you do, for the work that you do, brother. You know, a lot of us Black men dispel the importance of therapy just from a shared space of being naive, like you don't even give it a try, right? However, what I will say is I started doing therapy for the first time in 2016. And prior to that, I was one of those that was like, I don't need that. Why am I paying my money to be able to talk to somebody that I don't know, this, that, and the third? What I will say, though, is that was one of the best decisions that I made in my life. And so I encourage anybody to do that. But for you to be able, for you to commit your life and your career to that, brother, applause to you.
Thank you. If I could add to that really quickly, man, I know we got a lot to get into. I want to be mindful of time. Since the pandemic specifically, I always like to highlight that my caseload or my opportunity to work with Black men in this space has grown tremendously. It used to be Black men who were coming into space because their significant other said, oh, you should come with me. Now I have brothers who are coming to this space independently, seeking it for themselves. So shout out to you for being vulnerable enough to share that information. So I'm glad, man. I'm glad that number is increasing. We got some more work to do, but I'm glad.
We in the game. We'll talk about that too. So y'all who are here with us today, we are talking about vulnerability, which is, a thing that's kind of new in our community, but it's important. And we're transitioning to a space where we're learning to be more vulnerable. We'll talk about how vulnerability is the real flex, but ultimately, you know, if you stay around for the entire time and gets to the end into our Patreon, we're going to talk about is the black family / black woman really ready for a vulnerable man? So we're going to get into it. We are all alpha men from the chapters, from the fraternity of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, from the Beta Iota chapter at Winston-Salem State University. And if y'all just want to say it in a special way, I'm going to lean it over to you.
The Beta Epsilon period chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But look, we close cousins though, and I love that.
We are great men. Most of us have known each other almost 20 years, if not a little bit over, a little bit under. And so it's going to be a great conversation of men. And so we're excited to have it. But y'all know what it is. Let's get into our game. Sean, take it over.
Yes, sir. So speaking of the game, what we're going to do is we're going to play this or that. So I'm going to run down the rules real quick. So I have 7 questions. We're going to see how many we're going to get through, because if we feel that we need to stop and unpack any, let's do that for the benefit of everybody that's listening. But I'm going to simply ask the question. The first half of the question is going to be A. The second half of the question, you good, Ali?
He laughing at me already.
No, it's all good. It's all
know,
good.
dog.
No,
I'm like, it's A or B, dog.
I'm just checking on him. The second half of the question is going to be B.
My line name was Martial Law. I don't follow rules. I'm
a count down 3, 2, 1. I will ask that you hold your answer until I have finished with 3, 2, 1. And if you could, please be decisive in not picking both for the sake of engaging in real conversation. Let's draw a definitive line, martial law. So, all right, first, transparency in marriage or honesty in marriage? Transparency in marriage or honesty in marriage?
I like it.
Y'all ready?
We're deciding which one we know is best.
Oh, hit his.
Yeah, bro. Like it always gotta be.
Hey, that's a great question.
Which
That's
one?
a good question.
Well,
though.
it's a good
That's
question
a good
for
question.
you because you are a guest. That's why it's a good question for you. But to answer the question, is which one you would prefer? Which one resonates with you personally? So I'll ask one more time and I'm gonna count down. Transparency in marriage or honesty in marriage? 3, 2, 1.
Fumbling over there, B.
So we have unanimous. We have unanimous where everybody would prefer to have transparency in marriage. I find that to be extremely interesting, and prayerfully we'll be able to dive into that a little bit deeper in the conversation. I'll make a mental note of that. The next one: be honest about your feelings with your significant other, or keep the peace by staying quiet. Be honest with your feelings with your significant other, or keep the peace by being quiet. 3, 2, 1.
I almost interrupted you.
Okay, another unanimous. So everybody chose A, which is to be honest about the feelings. Okay, next one. Say I don't know in a group, or just risk giving a wrong answer. So again, say I don't know in a group, or just risk giving a wrong answer. 3, 2, 1. All right. So we have 4 A's where Yusha is the B. Can you explain just a little bit why you are the one that chose to just risk giving a wrong answer?
It's what I do.
He's different.
A should be what I should do, but I'll be a dude who give you a really solid, confident wrong answer. I'll do that. It'll be wrong as hell, but it'll sound great.
A confident wrong answer, bro?
Yeah, but look though, I appreciate that though.
That's him.
Yeah,
That's him.
I appreciate that.
And it'll sound smooth as hell too, like really, really smooth. So you may not really know it's a wrong answer because he's gonna put so much context around it. You're gonna be like, yeah, you might be right, bro. He might be.
And sometimes I think I am. And since sometimes I just be fucking with people.
Listen your own self, dog. That's wild.
Hey, but look, I appreciate that though, because that shows a dichotomy in, you know, how our personalities are, how maybe even our upbringing is, so on and so forth. And prayerfully that'll come through the conversation.
They told us be wrong strong.
Okay. Fool's gold. I hear you. All right. So next one. Number 4. Be known for being the honest agitator or be known for being agreeable. Be known for being the honest agitator or be known for being, oh, I already know you ain't even look. Hey, I know you, Kurt. You ain't even gotta wait, bruh. Be known for being the honest agitator or be known for being agreeable. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, okay. So we have 4 A's and then we have 1 B from our brother Brandon. So you would prefer to be known for being agreeable. Can you explain that?
I would. I'm very big on words, so agitator bothered me. I'm not going to agitate with my presence, I think, in being in someone else's space. But my being agreeable to me is still a personal choice. So my level of being agreeable is always going to be something to my comfort, no matter what the situation is. So I can be agreeable, but I don't think agreeable means to acquiesce just to whatever the situation is calling for. But agitate, that's not really my personality, even with my honesty. So I can be in an agreeable space under my terms.
And then I can understand exactly what Brandon is saying, and I agree. But 2 things can be true, right? An agitator, somebody agitated by the truth, also can be somebody who's just not ready to be in an honest room. You know what I mean? And doesn't want to hear the truth or the things that can help them become the best version of themselves. You know, and we live in a world where that's true too. So
yeah, I would also add I would also add that if you think about a washing machine does just that to clean the clothes. When you apply the detergent, the fabric softener, or the truth, the washing machine then agitates the clothes to get the stains out, right? And so, yeah.
Oh, shit.
But I don't have a problem with accepting the negative either. I'm an agitator, so it is what it is.
I'm also going to say we strong black men in a very white society, white world, even if you live in DC. And so in all of the spaces where we advocate, we have to create some level of agitation to get to what is better for us, for our people, and what's needed, especially like in the schools and the different spaces where I go. It's like, I'm going to hold y'all accountable to the truth and what's right so that we can really help children and help people and help our people get to where they need to be above our own egos. And sometimes people don't like that.
Yes, sir. All right. So look, we got 3 more. Let's see if we can get through these real quick. So the next one, talk about your biggest fear or talk about your biggest regret. Talk about your biggest fear or talk about your biggest regret. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we have 2 A's, you, Sharon, Brandon, and then we have 3 B's, which was myself, Ali, and Kurt. Maybe that'll come up in the conversation. The next one, open up emotionally to your brotherhood or open up emotionally to your family, your blood. So just so it's no more clarifying questions, your blood family. So open up emotionally to your brotherhood or open up emotionally to your blood family. 3, 2, 1.
I had to be that guy.
Oh,
right.
man,
Had to
So-
be that guy.
you,
You,
I said brotherhood. We have 3 that said blood family, and then we had Kurt that chose both.
I know why he did that, and I think I wanted to do the same thing. So I feel like I know why Kurt did that, and I agree. I agree so much.
There you go.
I'm in the
There you
game.
go.
I'm in the game.
I don't know. It sounded you like you trying to be agreeable again. I'm just kidding.
All right. So look, I'm a.
You know what? I knew somebody was going to approach me with that. I knew it. I knew somebody was going to come at me in what was supposed to be a safe space. I knew somebody was going to do it.
All right. So look, last question. Try knowing that you will fail or avoid trying in the very first place.
Yeah.
Try knowing that you will fail or avoid trying in the very first place. 3, 2, 1.
I hate this word try.
All right. So we have 2 that chose to avoid trying in the first place, which was myself and Brandon. And then we have 3, Ali, Yusha, and Kurt, that will try knowing that they will fail. So prayerfully that'll come up in this conversation as well. Just real quick, what I would say is my response just now was a result of not where I currently am. It is a result of where I have been on an aggregated basis, because I have a tendency to be a perfectionist. And so that puts me into places of analysis paralysis. And so, like, if it's not perfect, if I feel like it still needs to be worked out, I'll hold on to it, which I know now that's not the right thing. But that was the reflection of why I chose that.
I want to say first and foremost, I hate the word try in this situation, right? I hate the word try, but I still said try even though I will fail, because any of us, who do good business and move in business, and I know we all are, you got to fail quickly. Failure can't be the thing that keeps you, because in all of that is a lesson that gets you to the success. So there actually is a book that says fail quickly.
Right? So what is the issue with the word try?
Somebody said, my dad, one of them old country sayings you're going to laugh about, but my dad used to tell me all the time, he said, don't try anything. And I was like, what you mean don't try anything? You got to try stuff to win. He said, when you go to the bathroom, he's like, and he gave me a nasty kind of like visualization. He's like, when you go to the bathroom, do you try to get your pee in the toilet? Or do you put it in the toilet? And I was like, well, I put it in the toilet. I can't try. It's going to be all over. He's like, right. When you try things, instead of going all in and just doing it, you make a mess of shit. So do it.
I respect that. I respect that.
I'm still processing.
It was a mindset shift to get me to stop thinking about going lukewarm. He wanted me to run full steam ahead. He like, don't try it. You're going to teeter. Go.
Yeah. I respect that. I can't personally adapt that mindset, and I see the sheer importance of trying, and here is why. Recently in a sermon, one of my pastors said that Kobe Bryant, who is known as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, also has the highest record of missed shots. And I want to say that it's like 14,817, right? But he's also still revered as one of the greatest players of all time. And so if he would have never taken them shots, would he be revered now as one of the greatest? He tried.
When Sean shaved off his hair, he shaved off his understanding. Let's go to our conversation about vulnerability.
Hey, Young. Oh, my God.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Let's get into it.
You shaved off.
So our conversation today is about vulnerability. We're going to transition into that because it's a great conversation to have. If Sean might have to be vulnerable with me about the statement I just made and how much he want to tell me to put the gloves on later. But you know what? I'm down.
You're going to have to be vulnerable.
I don't want to knock your wig off, Yusha.
And I'm with Yusha. You're going to have to get vulnerable as to how you got bald, because I know that's a vulnerable, conversation.
Hey, it'll come up in this conversation. I got a very direct answer as to why. So
we got 20 years of this, y'all. So we're gonna tell jokes, but we want to get into it. We want to make sure we have a serious conversation that really allows us to go through the shifts and changes of how we felt about vulnerability. And so we're just gonna start the conversation. Now, listen, I want to start by giving all of our listeners the technical definition of vulnerable. Definition of vulnerable: to be susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. To be susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. That is the technical definition of vulnerability. So my first question for us today, y'all, is what are your feelings about vulnerability? Its definition and your relationship to it. Mm-hmm.
I feel like vulnerability is the foundation of who I am. I feel like the idea of transparency and vulnerability rings at this point for decades in the rooms and spaces that I walk in. And I fell in love with the idea of it back at my lowest point, where I was, sleeping on a couch of one of my BE bros' crib, and that was the transition of me also going from a car and mom not even knowing that I was homeless at one point, you know what I'm saying, to just picking up the phone and saying, hey, bro, I don't have anywhere else to go. You mind if I come? You know what I'm saying? And he held me down, and I was able to wake up every day on that couch and try to figure out, how to make what I had thought was a set life work. And I came across a podcast that changed my life forever, which was The Power of Vulnerability, Brene Brown. And that's where I tell everybody to start at, right? And that was the moment where I realized vulnerability is strength. And as I started to as I started to practice that, right, I started to see my life start to evolve with not just, getting out of the space that I was in, but also finding my purpose in who I am. So, and I feel like that is the ultimate way to find freedom, is to be as transparent and vulnerable with the people that are around you. But the most important thing that I always say is vulnerability is a skill. You are not always going to get it right. And it takes a while to really learn it and figure it out. It's almost like a therapist. This is the example that I use, that first moment where you are open to the idea of a therapist, especially those who are against it. They go out and they seek a therapist and it's not really the right fit for them. And then they give up. Now you have to keep on finding who is the right fit for you. Finding the right therapist is a skill. So vulnerability is a skill. In every season, you may need a different type of vulnerability, a different type of therapist. So vulnerability is everything. And I think it's one of the most powerful traits that a strong man can possess.
Yeah, Kurt, I want to push on you. I hear you saying that, and what I hear you saying is like my relationship with vulnerability is this. When I was sleeping on this couch, when I had this circumstance, right? It sounds like you had some level of support. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I like vulnerability now. I love it. I understand it now. But that's within the last year or two because I hated the word vulnerability. But to be susceptible to hurt, harm, or danger physically or emotionally, why? Why would I want that? And I come from a place where people knew too much about you. They would use that against you, hurt you, laugh at you, treat you bad,
Yeah, see,
push you
but
away.
that's why it is a skill, right? Learning who, how, what to share the information with. You are gonna become an expert over time of knowing the signs that let you know who can you go there with, and all it is gonna do is gonna help you to compartmentalize better the rooms that you engage in, right? The people that you engage in too, you know. So that's a part of it.
Go ahead, Brian. My bad.
It is. It is. I think, I think too, man, adding to that conversation, I usually when I was listening to you, man, I think that makes sense. Like, why would I want to be harmed like intentionally? But I also don't know anything that ever grew from not being scathed a little bit. So I don't think I welcome the idea of being harmed. But like Kurt was saying, I do think I welcome that vulnerability is a practice skill. So I don't want my vulnerability to be hurtful or harmful to you, but I think internalizing things has more harmful impact that could potentially be explosive in a way because I'm burying or I'm suppressing certain things because I'm scared of the external outcome. So I think vulnerability is something that you practice. And I think you have to look at vulnerability from your point of view in terms of my vulnerability, my expression of who I am isn't necessarily for you. It's for me. Like I'm releasing this or I'm expressing this or I'm being, as we talked about, transparently open with you in hopes to share pieces of you. If you're not receptive to that and I'm harmed in the process, that's also a learning opportunity for me. But you have to learn how to practice that in a way that it doesn't close you off from the purpose of what being vulnerable actually is, which is to share and to be in a more leveled space emotionally so that people not understand you, but that there's a level of emotional maturity and respect for what it is that you share.
Hey, and then the other thing that's interesting that I know about this group of men, right, is we are truth seekers, right? The quickest way to get to the truth about who somebody is by expressing where you stand and what you feel about something and allow them to show you how they respond, take it, or agree or disagree with it, right? So the sooner that I am my authentic self and telling you where I stand in something and then how you respond. So if I pillow talk, right? And then you know what if I tell you something and then you pillow talk and then later on it gets back to me, right? Now this is a petty example, right? I that I have now gotten quicker to the reality that you are this person, right? You know what I mean? And now I can govern myself accordingly, right? So like a lot of times when we go ahead and speak on the things that we say are true, we can see how people and things like respond to it and we get closer to it. So that now we can move closer to where we need to be versus where we want it to be, or be around the people that we need to be around versus people that we don't need to be around. I hope
Hey,
that kind
Kurt.
of makes sense.
Hey, Kurt, that was one time in college, bro. Stop bringing up the past, man. It's like, nah, I'm just playing. Nah, but
Pillow talk.
nah, but I actually, so I agree with everything Kurt said, man. Like that's who I am, right? I will say though that I learned it unintentionally, right? And so as a kid, one of the great things that my mom did specifically, despite my environment and where I grew up, she always placed me in uh very diverse camps, summer camps, programs, so on and so forth, right? And so me just being a very jovial kid, naturally being a leader, somebody that wants to talk and engage with people, I'm going in there and I'm just talking and I'm really, I'm thinking that we on the same level of or same wavelength of how we grew up. So I'm talking about eating oodles and noodles for dinner, or you know what I mean, like fried bologna and cheese sandwiches, this, that, and the third. And some of these Caucasian kids are looking at me like, what are those first of all, you know what I mean? But then talking about them going to their uncle's ranch and riding horses or so on and so forth. And so I say all of that to say that I led with that and then realized that unintentionally I was being very vulnerable. However, at a very young age, I also knew that I was in a space with those same people for a reason, and I will outshine those people in that space for a reason. So it didn't matter what our background was. And so I use my vulnerability from that standpoint of continuing to be true to myself. But then as they saw me being vulnerable, they saw how I was able to use that as a strength despite my upbringing and still shine and arise to the occasion. Right. Also in that though, what I did learn, to Kurt's point, is I learned how to not only identify when people were not being as vulnerable as me and then use that as my gauge to kind of pull back, or realize the level of transparency that I need to to provide at certain times depending on their level of vulnerability.
Yeah, I think that has to happen though, right? Like I think that like you have to have those experiences. And I often ask people when I'm working with them, what was your introduction to vulnerability, right? Like when do you remember? Because I don't know that my mom sat down and said, okay, let's talk about being vulnerable. I don't think anybody actually sat me down and said it that way. So a lot of times your experiences or your exposure to vulnerable situations, I think there's, this idea of resiliency versus being forced to be resilient. And I think there are two different things, right? So I think that level of vulnerability, being hurt, having somebody not receive you when you are vulnerable, I think these are lessons. Like these are natural lessons that I think have to teach you the appropriateness of being vulnerable, because I think there are moments where you can overshare. Like I think there are moments where it's like, I don't know that everybody needs to know that. I think you might be oversharing or being a little too vulnerable in this moment in terms of privacy or certain areas of that you may not want everybody to be exposed to naturally. So I think that's an important piece. When did you meet the necessity to be vulnerable, and who taught you the levels or what that kind of looks like? Was it trial and error, or did somebody kind of walk with you through it?
I
Hey,
love I love the question.
if I could jump in on this, cause y'all said a whole lot, and I want to try to have a nexus here, but I also want to kind of like distinguish myself in it, because I'm finding some difference in it, right? So I want to answer your question, Brandon. I think the first time I was aware or exposed to vulnerability was through my mother. She's a single mother, and I'm the only child. So vulnerability was almost forced in our household, and led, because she had to be vulnerable, right? So I saw it real clear. And then I'm struggling with this concept that it's a skill set you have to learn. I get it, right, and how you use it, right? But I know I've kind of been a vulnerable person from the onset, right? And I've kind of always been that way, as long as I can remember. And it goes back to what Kurt was talking about. There was a level of freedom as a kid that I just needed to have in my space and in my environment, and I found the freedom in it through vulnerability very early on. Now, I think because I have been susceptible to harm, right, for so long, I don't really have a care of the level of vulnerability that I'm with people in any room, in any space, at any time, at any level. So I'm really trying to resonate a little bit, but I really can't, because back to that question about avoidance versus trying the first time, I'm really like, yeah, we've all been in spaces that we willingly walked into, spaces that we knew we were susceptible to harm because we wanted to try something the first time. So, I'm just trying to draw the nexus, and I'm hearing people, man. It's a lot of good stuff.
Ali, and I'm so glad that you said that, right? Because to know Ali is to know that you are exactly that, right? You just organically show up in a very vulnerable way. Everybody's gonna know how you feel, where you feel, in the most right way. You know what I mean? And what I want to point out to that is something can be a skill to some and a natural ability to others, right? You know what I mean? And the reality of it is, yes, you were born that way. You were gifted with this idea of vulnerability. So sometimes it's hard to comprehend it from this type of space of, but because it's hard to understand how other people don't have it, right? Or don't understand it, right? You understand it at such a young age that you didn't have to process it. You know what I mean? But there's millions of people, right, who have never even explored the idea of that culturally or whatever that may mean, right? So really, I mean, that's a blessing. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of where we have to lean into. It's just like the athlete. There's some athletes who can jump out the gym. And then there's some athletes who would never be able to jump high. And then there's some athletes who had to learn the mechanics to maximize the amount of force that they can put into the ground to get up as high as that,
Right.
as they can.
I love all of the aspects that's coming from this and how we're using the different spaces and analogies to explain it.
Mhm.
I want to speak for a brother that's not here. I really feel like, and I want to use this word lightly, I feel like we're speaking from vulnerability from a privileged standpoint of actually having the space to have people mistreat you or not create safety for you, but it still be space for you to continue to live your life. But all of us were born in the 80s during the crack epidemic, and depending on the neighborhood you was born from, being vulnerable could get you killed. And there was no space for there to be, I learned my lesson from this type of situation. In some instances, I want to speak for the brothers who grew up in those spaces where there wasn't even a safety of, man, I can use my vulnerability to understand who can truly care for me, because that could be your last day, or that one word you say or that thing that you give could get you backdoored. And we still got youth who are, especially here in DC in the district, we still got youth who are dealing with it where, a moment of vulnerability could be your one mistake.
And I think to that point though, Yusha, I think because as men, excuse me, especially men of color, we're not socialized as men that vulnerability is acceptable. So I think a lot of that, like, because I didn't grow up in a neighborhood like that, so I can't speak to it to that degree. So I want to be clear about that. But I think I do know that vulnerability is something that is taught and learned. Now, who teaches it to you and how you learn it, I think is going to vary, obviously, between the person. Ali said it's been more in his home. It was indoctrinated in his home. So we're going to meet vulnerability in different spaces. But I think men specifically, we're all Black men, we're having this conversation. We're not taught that vulnerability is necessity as a part of maleness or as a part of manhood. We're not taught that those two things are synonymous. So you may have males who don't understand that it is okay to cry, or that you're crying, so that means you're in a vulnerable space, and that I have to respect that or make sense of what that means for you. If I'm not taught that, that's where the harm starts. The harm is starting in the fact that I don't know that that's an okay moment for you, or that because I didn't see it from the other men in spaces that are supposed to be safe for me, I don't grow up with this connection to what vulnerability can look like. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So
I mean, I can speak for that man, for that guy, because I did come from that environment. And even though I was able to say that my mom put me in environments that allowed me to be able to adapt, that were multicultural, that were diverse, that was not reflective of my neighborhood, right?
right.
So I was able to truly, I'm blessed enough to be where I am now, and even in my maturation, because I had that opportunity to step outside of my neighborhood. But when I was in my neighborhood, I was a completely different person, right? Now, the result of that is that I am 39. I am now becoming a crier for the very first time in my life.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And
Wow.
and so, because there's a difference between being vulnerable and opening up and talking. There's a whole nother nexus of somebody who can freely and openly cry, right?
Yeah.
I'm this year, I'm talking about maybe even in the past 2 months.
Yeah, I think it's very important for us to clarify to the audience, you know, what vulnerability we're talking about too, right? Like we aren't talking about being a bitch. Let's just make that very clear, right? Like nobody on this podcast gives off the energy where another man feels like he can walk up to us and say anything and everything that they want to say. Right. We command the level of respect when we walk in different types of rooms, no matter if it's corporate, if it's casual, if it's family. We are the leaders of our families and our ecosystems, right? We just happen to be leaders of ecosystems that don't have any ego, and we are really capable of coming together and sharing space. And it works because we have a lot of these intrinsic qualities that really allow these confident, well-versed men to exist without any issues. But at the same time, what we're saying is, as being leaders in all these other spaces outside of this group, right? We can have a moment where, you know, a family member or something that really moves us in our family, we can allow our emotions to show, right? And it not take away from the masculinity of who we are. I think, you know, the past few years we've been talking about what is toxic masculinity. I think it can kind of get construed in a lot of different ways. Brandon, you can interrupt me if I'm wrong, right? But like I think just because you're not soft, that doesn't mean that it's toxic masculinity, right? You know what I mean? But at the same time, just because you cry, that doesn't mean that it's vulnerability. You know what I
So
mean?
those
So
those those,
like
those traits, when you talk about being toxic on the masculine level, those traits are usually the exacerbated or forced presentation, right, of being strong or being aggressive, like when you see those things in excess. And so that's where the toxic piece, or we use that verbiage, can kind of, come into place, as far as, as far as masculinity goes. And I think that vulnerable conversation, I think, like you said, there's an apex to it, or there's like levels to what that expression of vulnerability means. And oftentimes, I think from us, I don't know if everybody here has a son or, what have you, but I think for boys specifically, there's this separation of church and state, if you will, of strength and vulnerability, that we
yeah,
hyper push
yes.
or force this concept of boys don't cry, men or boys don't cry, which turns into men who may not. Sean, I love that you said that you are 39, brother, and you are now a crier. I love that for you. I will cry at the drop of a dime, and my family knows that, and I don't hide that from them. I've gone through certain experiences that have unlocked that level of safety for me. I want them to see that. I want my family to see me being expressive, because it's not always sadness that's associated with being vulnerable or being emotively expressive by crying. But we start from a very early age, even with the sports that we push our sons or males into, with teaching them bravado and confidence. When, as a coach of a little league football team, I've seen 7-year-olds get hit and do what? Cry. It's new. That getting hit doesn't feel good. Kurt, I know you're probably still the best athlete on the panel today, but getting hurt does not. I mean, getting hit doesn't feel good.
Ali don't like that.
You
Ali
know,
don't like
Ali,
his
I'm sorry,
competition
brother.
kick
I'm
in.
sorry, Ali. I'm sorry, brother.
You see, he had to watch his face. He got real still for a second.
Ali was like, you know what? That's probably. He's like, I was agreeing with this brother till he said that, but it's true though. Like,
hey, I want to tell you why I laughed
separate.
too. I had the visual of two 7-year-old kids like hitting each other, and one of them 7-year-old kids be like, "Ouch!"
Because it's not dad in the living room anymore. It's
So,
not in the living room.
Omaha.
It's hard. It's tough.
So,
You know?
so Brendan, quite interestingly enough, is I'm about to go to my son's football game in a few, right? And there's a difference in learning that delicate balance, right, of teaching my son to be tough. You're right. Having a moment where he realizes what he feels, but also understanding what's the mission at hand is the key here, right? Because I can be the dad who understands that my son is going to be undersized, right? And if he wants to do this, he has to have a little bit more grit than these other boys, right? And he's going to probably get knocked around a little bit more than another boy. So yes, it's like, hey, get back up. But then after the game, right, pulling him, sitting on the couch, being like, yo, CJ, just come here right quick. Hey, how did you feel, man? Oh, cool. Did it hurt? All right, hey, man, you did a good job of popping up. Listen, it's nothing wrong with crying. But if you know that you can like just push through it, try. And then if you need to cry, cool. Or on the discipline side, right? The discipline side is I'm learning no longer to say, stop crying, right? Now I'm saying, hey, go to the other room. If you still crying, come back down when you're when you're ready, right? Now that's relative to what the issue is, right? You know what I mean? But yeah.
I wanna ask y'all this, because Kurt, you brought up a good point in terms of how we're talking about it. Then we're all giving praise to vulnerability, but I want to ask a question to y'all, like, why is this important, right? Why as men are we really, really talking about this thing of vulnerability? Like, why is it I'm for me, right? But I want to direct this to y'all for the millions of people who I feel like are, like, Kirk talking about, are dealing with this concept of vulnerability. But like, I don't know if we're talking about why it's important. Like, because who cares who cares that y'all are having these conversations with your kid? Who cares that like you've arrived to this point to use it as like, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I want to tell you, I want to jump right out there, and I want to keep it short. Vulnerability is important to me primarily because, and I'll make this very self-specific, but it could also be a community thing, especially as we go bridge the gap today. I want to be married again. And so what I'm experiencing, or what I've experienced in the dating world, especially in my dating world, is that over time, I learned not to be vulnerable, but to still make great sound decisions, right? Because I learned how to like not take it personal, you know what I'm saying? 4 agreements, everything ain't about you. So I wouldn't be vulnerable about a lot of stuff, but I also allow myself to stop really processing emotions in a certain type of way. I always reframe my negative emotions to have this positive thought, and I would move straight to decisions. What that looked like in relationships, even with my daughter and with women I was dating, was that because I was skipping over the emotional part, the more vulnerable piece of myself, and moving straight to decision, I'm maintaining my strength all the time, but now I don't have the skill or the practice to make space for them to do it. And so in relationships, the sisters and sisters, like, bro, you a robot. Like, you don't have no feelings. And I'm telling them, you got too many. Like, just make the decision. Like, there's a decision at the end. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I had to learn to be vulnerable again. Not to be vulnerable, to be vulnerable again. so I can make space for the people in my life, my daughter included, to have the space to feel. And then still at the end help them if they need it to draw a conclusion to a better decision. But to know that like it's okay to feel, it's okay to go through it.
Yeah. I love
I
that
want to.
response.
Oh, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I love that response. And I think that there's so many different reasons and truths behind it because mine is different from what you should just said, right? I look at it and so vulnerability um, used over time and worked out over time then becomes a skill that allows you to properly process emotion, right? Because without that, it could come out as anger or aggression, which anger or aggression, in my opinion and in my experience, is really just unexpressed emotion. I felt a certain way in another area. And the majority of you guys know I was typically perceived at a younger age as being very angry and very aggressive, right?
Mhm.
But I didn't have an outlet and I did not know how to truly express myself in certain areas. And it came out in that way.
Man, this is interesting because you know, my relationship with Ali and half man, half amazing, right, is very interesting in what that dynamic is. We are so much alike that we've been able to do life with each other at different points. And you know, there's a lot of things that was said here. So if I had to answer the question to what Ali asked, is understanding self in the most quiet moments, right? Understanding self to what, you know, half man, half amazing said, which was process emotions. You know what I'm saying? And just like him too as well. I have an aggressive personality, right? You know, and I had to learn how to navigate that, and that's also how we maximize the relationships that we have and that we want, right? How we show up, why we show up the way that we do, that all matters on the personal level. But then on the relationship level, like we talk about love languages, right? But if you aren't vulnerable enough to be that person or be that thing, right, that we need to be to learn how to make that person feel comfortable to be the best version of themselves, or to express themselves, right? Like one of the things that I can say is the things that I had to navigate in my process of becoming a divorced single father of a daughter who is, you know, well, first off, part of just going through the things that led up to our divorce, right? And how I had to show up to my ex wife, right? And then the things that I experienced post. And then also having a 3, 4, 5 year old little girl in that whole presence, right? Like the level of vulnerability that I had to make sure that I was developing and maximizing the skill was so important, and it's still relevant in the day-to-day life that I have now with the ecosystems of women that are in my space because of business, because of community, so on and so on. And I've been able to really just show up at a high level because of the willingness for me to embrace this idea of vulnerability. I just know the power of it, right? And I know that it's not taken advantage of when you're around the right people, and it helps you to find the right people.
Amen to that. I think vulnerability, Ali, going back to the precipice of the question, man, I think it's important for me because I've seen professionally and personally that the alternative is damaging. And I don't know that my vulnerability is something that puts me in that same seat. I don't want damage with who I am as a person, because if I'm damaged, that means I'm likely to damage those around me, whether that's directly or indirectly in my expression of my feelings or my expressions of my thoughts. And so when I think about that concept of being vulnerable, it's natural for me, but there's levels to vulnerability that I've learned in being in a committed relationship and being married and being a father, that it's levels. No matter how natural it felt to me, being vulnerable with a partner is still different. Being vulnerable with my mother as an adult male versus a child is still a difference. So when we talk about it being a skill, that's why it's an ongoing practice, because you can't be the same type of vulnerable with every person in your ecosystem or in your space. Being vulnerable with my children versus being vulnerable with you all looks different, but I'm applying that skill in different spaces because the alternative to me is quiet. It's regress. It's burying thoughts and feelings. And I tell people professionally all the time, I don't care what you bury, it's going to show itself and grow in a totally different way. It's up to you if it grows unhealthily or if it grows and bears some type of fruit that you can benefit from. But it will show itself. I don't care what you bury or what you don't express. Your body's not made to compound and hold in those types of feelings and thoughts. It's going to show itself. I promise that to anyone who sits across from me. I don't care how you view it, it's going to happen that way. So why not me be on the front end of being able to navigate and control where my spaces are versus it controlling that shit for me?
Yeah, so I appreciate y'all, y'all answering that, because I wanted us to make sure we were giving our communities a why.
Hey,
right?
yo, hold on, wait, Ali. Let's accent that, because Apple did it. The alternative is dangerous. And Apple was like, boom, boom, what a mic drop.
Destruction.
I was just about to say that, Brandon, man. Like what you just said, brother, you went Super Saiyan. And I don't even know if you know it, because the computer screen showed that. You just went Super Saiyan, brother. That was dope.
I was trying to talk through that. Great, bro. Seeing fireworks and shit. I was like, is that me?
Hey, look, it was reacting. It was reacting to your mic drop, bro.
Yeah,
that was crazy. So let's transition into our community spotlight, and we'll be back.
Hey, welcome back from our community spotlight. Y'all know what it is. We always want to make sure that we are giving spaces for the people in our community to shine. Any closing remarks on that conversation before we go into our working and winning?
Nah, man. I really just want to say vulnerability seems to be a necessity, a tool that we all need in terms of just knowing who we are, finding ourselves, finding freedom, getting close to God, getting closer to our people. And specifically for black men in this country, it's okay to be vulnerable. I want to say that. And I've been on a mission to make sure that people and black men know that it's okay to be vulnerable, and there's freedom in vulnerability, and there's power in vulnerability. So choose vulnerability, man. The sooner you choose it, man, the closer you're going to get to your true self.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said that, Ali. We're going to transition into working and winning. Sorry, Sean. I do want y'all to know, though, that our Patreon, our extended version of this conversation is, though we're saying be vulnerable and it's powerful and it is a skill, we're asking the question, we're holding ourselves accountable to thinking fully about the aspect of it and saying, hey, is the black family, is the black woman, is the world really ready for vulnerability from black men? But let's get into our working and winning, y'all. So here we are, working and winning. Working and winning says, if you woke up this morning, if you can see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, then your body works. And if your body works, you have everything you need to win. And so what we do is we like to tell y'all what we're working on, but also leave you with some piece of advice, knowledge, information, or resource that can help you win. And so everybody's going to give their working and winning, and we're going to pick the next person. We're going to pass the rock. We got a good 5-squad team today. We're going to start with the star player. Ali, come through, the noble one.
On the PG, start with the point guard. All right, man. So what I'm working on is exposing myself to new roles and higher levels. Right. I'm working in a role that I chose to go into that I knew was interesting enough, harmful. Right. There was some bleeding in this position, but I stepped into it knowing that I had the ability and I wanted to exercise like my gifts. And that's what I'm working on. And it's interesting, man. It's working on managing, I hate to say this, but I'm being real, black women. And if y'all know, Black women are a major force in the work in the industry, and it is a skill set navigating Black women, and I do want to say that. The win is that I'm actually cultivating not only my family, right, but I feel like I'm cultivating communities outside of my family, and it feels good to do that. I'm gonna pass it to my friend.
All right, so what I am working on is just overall just scaling my gym business. Been able to really just do some great things. It was never supposed to be what it is now. What it is now, I have a team of 15 people that show up every day and give to the community. We literally serve hundreds and thousands a month through our programming that we host here, you know, and just figuring out what that looks like for not just myself and my family, but for my team, and making sure that we are continuing to do what we do really well. We've won 2 years in a row, Charlotte's Best, and just naturally, we can't stay stagnant because of what the demands are, you know. So figuring out what that looks like is a big part of it. The other part is providing my kids what they need in our new season. So, you know, I am a divorced full-time father. I was never expecting to necessarily be a full-time 24/7 father, right? So kind of learning what that is, and then just understanding how fragile the reality of it is, having an 8 and a 6-year-old, a boy and a girl, right? And the energy, and then trying to balance that with, being an entrepreneur with a lot of different businesses that are blessed, that are in a blessed space and are doing really well, right? So I'm just very humble and thankful for that. As far as the winning pieces, man, my communities are just stronger than ever. If we talk about my support system for the kids, right? Man, I'm just thankful for people for just being willing to show up for me. When we talk about, just transitioning out of divorce, right? My ecosystem has shown up for me. Like the people that I thought were my friends and my support groups and so on and so on proved to be exactly that. When I think about the winning of my businesses, right? The businesses are flourishing and doing well only because I truly feel like this idea of vulnerability lives in all of my spaces. So we have created a culture where we attract certain intrinsic qualities of who people are, and it resonates with who I am, regardless if I'm in business or in personal life.
Yes. Oh, no. Who you passing the rock to, Kirk?
Man, let me pass it to Brandon.
Thank you, good brother. Thank you. So I think in terms of working, I'm trying to do more things like this. I've been having more conversations with brothers in the personal and in the professional space about putting my voice, I like to say, beyond the couch or beyond the office space, where people can feel safe in that way. So I'm working on putting, I think, things that I'm grabbing from sessions and things that I'm grabbing from people that I'm having the opportunity to work with, to put these thoughts out in more mass ways. So doing more things like this. I'm working with some people in Charlotte now to do more workshops for couples, especially, and also doing some Black male identity series type things. That's been more of a passion of mine, I'd say the last 4 or 5 years, is working on Black male identity, self-esteem work, and understanding the maturation process of our identity is really historical. It even goes back to slavery in terms of the condition of the Black male from a psychological standpoint. So I'm really trying to be out more in the forefront and participating, because I'm working in sessions that are usually one-on-one or one-on-two, so those are very private. So I'm trying to gather some of that information to put it out to the masses in a protective way with some of the things that I'm hearing, especially from Black men. So platforms such as this one I'm thankful for, and platforms like some of the other ones that I hope to be a part of, so that these messages get out to larger groups of people. In terms of, I think, the winning piece for me, I'm in a season right now where I'm really trying to focus more on not just my capability in certain situations as a man, because I think I always feel capable to do certain things just because of who I am, the way that I'm built and how I'm built. I'm trying to operate more for my children's sake, for my wife's sake, in terms of more of my ability. So I think one of you brothers was talking earlier about, knowing when to say no, or knowing what that actually looks like, and knowing where to set boundaries boundaries, and also realizing I can't take care of all the things that I want to without the right support system. It doesn't have to be just me. So leaning more on my spouse when necessary, and leaning more towards my friends in terms of I need help with this, and being okay with that. And also not taking the guilt back because I can't help everybody the way I'm capable of doing, because that's tiring me the hell out. So I'm trying to back up from doing that in this space, and I think that's helping me win in this new season that I'm trying to go to. So
you gotta pass it to somebody, B.
oh, let me pass the joint. Let me pass the joint to my tail brother Yusha. Let me pass to you, my boy.
Yeah, we in the game. So kudos to y'all and all the work y'all are doing. And hopefully, you know what I'm saying, the Most High will continue to just give guiding light to how we grow things, our businesses and our teams. I'm working right now on that, right? It's hot. It's getting hot outside, you know what I'm saying? Because it's getting hot outside, there are events everywhere. And because there are events everywhere, I got events everywhere, right? I'm getting all these call-ins and bookings, and it's a good thing, and I love being able to do that. And so I'm excited about just being a little bit outside. Last year I wasn't outside at all. I was in the house. You know, my immediate squad, Sean and Ali, know that I took the year off to just really reflect and go through transition. But I'm excited to be out. So if y'all need a host, if y'all need a coach, if y'all need somebody to come sit on your panel and talk, I'm in the game. Call your boy. We outside. Bookings everywhere. The winning piece of that for everyone here is that getting caught up in all of that can also then push you away from your quiet spaces, your boundaries, and your routines. And that's what will make you tired and not experience it. And I'm already experiencing that, being too pulled in too many different places. And so my winning advice, the word that I want to give to y'all to help y'all win, is the hardest work, I feel like, my opinion, that you will do every day is choosing to stay quiet at times and tap in. That's the hardest work, because the world will pull you, your family will pull you, your friends will pull you, your people will pull you. The hardest work is making the decision to stop and be clear and be tapped in, be prayed up, to fast, to do God's work, you know what I'm saying? And part of God's work is really just allowing him a speaker box in your heart. That's the hard work. If you do that, right, it'll give you a peace and a sound understanding of how to move. And I'll finish with this. My father used to always say this. He says, you know, if you want 5 new clients, say you want 5 new clients, you can go after 500 people. You can go talk to 500 people to get the 5 new clients, or you can let God lead you and talk to 10 and get 5 new clients. And that was his lesson to me, to tell me staying tapped in will keep you from being all over the place to get to the ends that you want, Sean.
All right. My work. So let me start with this. Shout out to our brother, our fraternity brother, Johnny Wood. In college, long story short, he taught me the power and importance of hugging another man. For anybody that knows him knows that he is a hugger. At the time, I was not, to the point where I would literally stiff arm him and threaten to hurt him if he tried to hug me. Long story short, by the time we graduated, we were both hugging each other as we greeted each other, right? And so he helped me to mature in that area. What that did was leaving there and then coming back home, greeting my grandfather, who greeted me my entire life with a handshake and everybody else with a handshake. I then broke through his uncomfortability in growing him in a space of making him a hugger before he passed in April of 2023, right? To the point where he was able to show love through hugging everybody else, because I was able to teach him based on what Johnny Wood taught me. Now that leads to the work. That I truly believe set me on this path now, where I now work under my brother Minister Dumasani with the Kingsman Ministry, where I'm able to break through those barriers of vulnerability with other men and grow that community intention. So that's the work. Speaking of my brother Minister Dumasani, that leads to the win. Currently, we are reading The Kingdom Man by Dr. Tony Evans. We have a book club. This will be my 3rd time reading it, and I am a reader that actually purchases books because I write in all of my books. I have notes, I have questions, so on and so forth. And so my personal win in reading this book that I recommend highly to all men. I'm very curious to see my maturation over the years and see whether I'm able to answer all of the questions that I previously asked myself.
That's dope.
Dope. Man, listen, y'all know what we do. We work and win. We gonna tap out. We do have a short Patreon coming up for y'all. We gonna jump into it, and we, it's part of the conversation. But for right now, we gonna pray it out. Is the black family / black woman ready for male vulnerability? Sean, can we get the pray out?
Absolutely, and I'll be extremely quick. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for providing us with this space. I pray that you are heard through this. I pray that the words that are needed to be said to specific people that are hearing what we talked about today pierce their heart. May that void be filled with you. May that void be filled with vulnerability. May that void be filled with strength. May that void be filled with confidence and understanding that vulnerability can be something that is truly, truly beneficial, not only to yourself and your personal healing, but to your community and definitely your family. So just allow you to show up and let your light shine. Amen.
Amen.
That was a short prayer.
It was.
Okay.
Competition, boy, I know your strengths. I can star on your team, play support on your bench. I'ma rock with you forever, bro. That's what makes sense. You know, been tested. You showed up in the trench. Ain't no fake love between us, cause we don't get at an inch. Peace king for life. That's how we work and we win. Real friends. Real friends. Where would I be without my Hey son, who gon' ride for me like my day one?